Hey guys, what's up? This is Dragon, a challenger player in North America, and today we'll be showing 12 new efficient jungle routes for all types of junglers in the Season 5 jungle. The types of junglers you will be seeing in this video will be high sustain, like Lien, average, like Draven, tanks, like Nautilus, farmers, like Master Yi, and AD carries, like Lucian. Do take note that if you don't know what kind of jungler your champion is, just consider them average and take the average route. Now with all that being said, hopefully you guys know what you're getting into, and let's get started. Alright, so the first route we're going to be showing is a high sustain jungler route. This route is basically red to wolves to blue. And the reason we don't do Wraith is because they hurt a lot, so when we're done this route, we won't be low on our hit point. In fact, when doing wolves and doing this route, we will be at our full hit point and we'll be ready to gank. The reason we don't do golems is because golems only stun the enemy after every 5 hits. And since we are a high sustain jungler, we do not need that, as the main usage of stunning the jungle creep is to reduce damage taken. But since we are a high sustain jungler, we don't need that. And also, when doing this route, our ganking time will be around 323, so it is a pretty efficient route, especially for the early game junglers. For the purple side, we will be starting at the blue buff and then continuing on to the wolves and then finishing up at red. Again, avoiding the wraith camp since they do a bit too much damage, and also when doing this route, your goal should be to gank right after, like in Season 4, since you do have the hit point to not get bursted by the enemy laners. So if you are an early game jungler with sustain, I recommend you taking this route. If you are an average jungler doing this route, then you might have to recall right after. But if you are an average jungler, the next route might help you. So in this route, we'll be doing golems to red to wraiths, and then we're going to recall, and then we're going to head to our blue. So since we are an average jungler, if we did the high sustain jungle route, we'd probably have to recall after the second buff. But with this route, we recall a bit earlier and get our second jungle item, and like 2 or 3 pots so that we can keep ganking lanes and causing pressure around the map. Do note that if we started on the high sustain jungler route and even got a leash, we'd probably at the end of it still be at half health and probably want to recall, since we do not want to gank when we're half health, since there is a possibility of us dying. The only thing that's bad about this path is that we don't gank around 3:30, we gank around 4 minutes. Most likely outcome will be 3:45 since we'll probably get a leash in a normal game, but that's the only con I can see, is that your early game pressure is a bit delayed. Other than that, it's a really solid route for any jungler to take. Now on the purple side of the average jungler route, we do gromp to blue to wolves, and then we're going to recall and then head to red. This is of course the route you want to take if you want to start blue, or you want to start your bottom side on the purple side, so you do get that strong leash and a bit of faster clears. Be sure to smite the gromp since it does give you a buff where it hurts the jungle creeps attacking you. So when I'm talking about average junglers, I'm actually talking about most of the junglers, since an average jungler is basically someone who doesn't have high sustain. So like I said previously, if you're unsure of what route to take with the champion you're jungling with, you're probably going to want to do this one. As for tank junglers, it's actually going to be the same thing. The only difference between average junglers and tank junglers is that tank junglers are going to have a much slower clear time, simply because they are tanks and they don't really do damage. But it's also really funny since their clear times are so slow, they can actually hit level 3 on the 3rd camp, since if you smite a monster, you get bonus XP which allows you to get level 3. And so after hitting level 3, you could potentially gank after you've recalled, but most likely you will go to your blue buff since the cooldown of your smite has come back up. And also you probably won't gank after your 3rd camp since you do not have the health to provide for the gank. And of course the alternate route for the average junglers is still the same. You're going to want to start at the gromp and smite it for the poison buff, and then it's to your blue, to your wolves, recall, buying your trailblazer, buying some pots, and then finishing up at your red buff. And if you don't know what a tank jungler is, it's basically someone who can take a lot of hits but doesn't really do a lot of damage or can build damage. The next jungle route we'll be discussing is going to be the farming route. The farming route is going to be very similar to the average route and the tank route, but after we recall, we go to our gromp instead of the blue buff and then start from there. So it would actually go gromp to blue buff to wolves to your golem since you cleared the wraiths so fast, and then ending up at your wraiths. So the good thing about this route is that you hit level 5 at the end of it, and at the end of it, it'll be around 5 minutes, so at that moment you'll probably be the highest level in the game. So this is a really efficient route if you're trying to farm as much as you can and, you know, kind of go into that fail filler mood. The only problem is that the spawn rates of the camps are a bit longer than Season 4, so in the meantime, instead of farming all day, you're gonna have to gank eventually and you can't farm all day. Also, I think after your last set of Wraith, if you decide to go to the Gromp, I don't think it'll be there since the respawn times are a bit higher, so you might as well recall and buy some items. And so for the alternative route, it'll be the Gromp to the blue to the walls, and then you're going to want to recall, and then you're going to want to start your full clear, starting from the golems to the Gromp, and then to the walls as your final camp. The only problem with this route is that you actually don't hit level 5. In fact, you're almost to level 5, but not quite there, and so you're a bit short off XP, but it honestly doesn't matter since when you recall, you're probably going to take another camp since your smite will be up. So I'm not entirely sure why you don't have level 5. I think it has to do something with the Wraith camp giving more experience points than the Wolf camp or even the Gromp, but you know, I'm not 100% sure. And if you're not so sure what a farm jungler is, it's basically someone who wants to farm the jungle all day and get a lot of XP and gold. The only bad thing is they're not exerting early game pressure, but obviously in Season 5 we don't know if early game pressure means a lot as much as it did in Season 4. Alright, so last up is the AD carry junglers. These junglers are the most trickiest to do their route since it kinda takes a little bit of micro. So we're gonna have a short and slow tutorial of how to jungle with AD carries. So the normal route without a leash will be golems to red to blue. So basically what you want to do first off is smite the golem when it spawns. To do this clear efficiently, you're gonna need the golem buff to help you stun the creeps so you can kite them. Then right after, you want to try and kite this golem around the wall so it keeps going back and forth. And then you can actually just ignore the small golem since it doesn't really do any damage. Now next up we're going to do the red. Now this one's really tricky, but basically what you want to do is get into a spot where the red keeps going back and forth. Any spot actually works because your jungle item actually has a poison debuff so it keeps coming back and forth. But once you get around like 900 hit point, you're going to want to start tanking it because if you actually keep resetting it that much times, it'll eventually reset permanently and restore like 500 health. So to prevent that from happening, you do have to tank a few shots, but at least you do have the stun from your golem buff. Alright, so if you do have a skill that can hit over this wall and aggro the blue buff, do so and then proceed to start hitting it, and then just try and kite it around so you don't take a lot of damage. And yeah, that's basically it. You will probably still have a pot after you do this, and an alternative route is you can go red to wolves to blue, and I think your clear time is like 7 seconds faster, but the really bad thing is you won't have as much hit point as you would if you took the golem buff. Alternatively, on the other side, it actually kind of sucks more. Since you don't have the golem buff, you can't really kite efficiently, and you actually take a lot of damage, so doing the blue to wolves to red route is like decent, but at the end of it, you will take a lot of damage since you do not have that golem buff. So what I recommend is to simply do the Lucian route that I showed earlier, and start at the golems, do the red buff, and then finish off at your blue buff. Even though bot side could leash you and potentially have more hit point than I did in the last clip, I feel like getting that golem buff is more efficient since you don't take as much damage and you can also kite around the buffs, and yeah, you have more hit point, you'll have enough hit point to gank a lane. So I mean, I feel like if you want to be an AD carry jungle, start at the golems as it does make the clears easier, and of course you don't take as much damage. So that is the end of this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully this video wasn't useless to you and it sort of helped you or like kind of made you understand what to do. There could be a better route than the ones I listed, but to my knowledge currently I do not know any more efficient routes. But anyways, hopefully this video was helpful and improved your way of the Season 5 jungling. I'm going to be showing the rune pages and masters that I use in this video, as you guys are probably thinking what I used during the video and what kind of setup did I have. Do note that some of these runes and mastery pages I wouldn't use on my actual rune page for that character, as I kind of forgot to change it when I was going into testing, but it's all basically the same stuff. Anyways, I am Panther Dragon, and hopefully we'll see you next time.